We're here on Daf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis, and we're up to Amr Le Rabbanon LeRav Papa. So if you see the Gemara after the Mishnah, then if you move down, actually, I think an easy way of pinpointing the place we're up to would be to count up from the bottom of the Amr. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines, or 10 lines up from the bottom. And the first word in the line is af. So if you take your finger 10 lines up from the bottom, you'll see a line that begins with af. Amrulei Rabbanan LeRav Papa. This is where we stopped yesterday. Umimatzis Amrid Hachi. How can you tell me that according to Rabbi Meir, in the case of Levishas Bigdei Kodesh, there's only one Kiddush, and there's another Machayev of Kiddush called Pshita, meaning taking off the begodim when he takes off his Bigdei Kodesh. So again, as opposed to Rav Papa, let's say, as opposed to the Talmidim, who understood that according to Rabbi Meir, Levisha generates two Kiddushim, one before and one after. That's how the Talmidim understood Rabbi Meir. Therefore, even when he puts on his big days off for the first time in the morning, he needs two Kiddushim. Rav Papa understood Rabbi Meir saying, no, there's one Kiddush for Pshita and another Kiddush for Levisha. He says, for Asanya, what are you going to do with this brisa that records the machlok between the Chachamim and Rabbi Meir? And it says the following. It's describing the Avodas HaKohen on Yom Kippur. Parsu sadin shel butz beino levein ha'am. So between him, meaning between the Kohen Gadol and the Am, they put this mat that was made of linen to remind him that the big day Lavan were designated for the Avodas Hayom. And this is the tznius because now the Kohen Gadol is going to go down into the mikveh. Yorad v'tava, all of it is stapeg. Hevilo big day zav. So now he's about to commence the avodah of the day, namely the Tamid Shel Shachar. They bring him his big day zav. Lavash. Now here we're studying the Chachamim of Rabbi Meir. The Kidesh Yodav V'Ragla. In other words, there's only one Kiddush, and that's the Kiddush of Levishas Big Day Zav. Because again, the Chachamim hold that Levisha only generates one single Kiddush Yodayim V'Raglayim, and Levisha generates the other Kiddush Yodayim V'Raglayim, but in this case, his Pshita is on Big Day Chol, so that would not generate. So the first Avoda requires Tvila and then Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, meaning he puts on the big day Zav and he's Mekadosh Yadayim Raglayim. There's no additional Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim here because he's taking off ordinary clothes, weekday clothes. And Rabbi Meir Omer, no. Pashat, as soon as he takes off his big day Chol, Kiddush Yadav Raglov, he needs Kiddush number one. And all this is again is in preparation for wearing the big day zav. The Yorad v'Toval, all of it is tapeg. Hevilo big day zav v'lovash v'Kiddush Yodav V'Ragla. He needs a second Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. So we see clearly from this brisa that according to Rabbi Meir, Levishas begonim require or generate two different kiddushim. One when he takes off his previous garments, and one when after he's placed on the new garments, the big day zah. And therefore, by we have no choice but to assume that our Mishnah that drops that first kiddush is like the Rabbanon and not like Rabbi Meir. Now, how do we know for sure that this Bryce that we just studied is talking about the first Tvila? And the answer is because it says explicitly in this Brisa that according to the first opinion, that of the Chachamim, the Kohen Gadol does not have Pshitas Bigdei Kodesh, hence he doesn't have a need for Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, whereas Rabbi Meir was the one who said no, he needs Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim before the Levisha and another Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim after the Levisha. So the machlokas here is, does he need an extra Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim when he takes off his first set of garments? And the Rabbanan dropped that first Kiddush, and Rabbi Meir insists on that first Kiddush. We must be talking about Tvila Rishona. That's the only way of understanding this. So now we have a source that Rabbi Meir holds that there are two Kiddushim on Levisha. There can't be a Kiddush on Pshita in the case of Big Day Chol. Hence, we have to derive the conclusion that if Rabbi Meir insists on two Kiddushim, one after he takes off his Big Day Chol and the other after he puts on his Big Day Kodesh, it means that Levisha itself engenders two Kiddushim. And that's against Rav Papa, because Rav Papa was insisting, no, that Rabbi Meir, like the Rabbanan, has two different machayvim, one of Pshita and one of Levisha. Amalahu, so Rav Papa responds, Tanya. I can't argue against the Brisa. I didn't know about the Brisa. And the Brisa explicitly tells us that the logic that underlies the Shita Rabbi Meir, not because, as I would have had it, says Rav Papa, that the Kiddush is on Pshitas Big Day Kahuna for the sake of Kiddush, but rather, as the Brisa says, Rabbi Meir holds it two Kiddushim on Levichas Big Day Kahuna. I would have said, according to my understanding, says Rav Papa, that Rabbi Meir has a Kiddush for Pshita and a Kiddush for Levicha, but the Brisa says explicitly that Rabbi Meir is on record as holding that in the first Tvila, the first Kiddush, he needs two Kiddushim. So it can't be that one Kiddush is on Levicha. Let me say it the other way. That one Kiddush is on Pshita and the other is on Levicha. It's going to have to be that the Levicha itself engenders two Kiddushim. One when he takes off his other garments and one when he puts on his new garments. Hence, according to Rabbi Meir, it's irrelevant whether he's taking off his first set of garments as Big Day Chol or he's taking off Big Day Kodesh, because it's all a matter of preparation and anticipation for the Levish. Therefore, according to Rabbi Meir, we have to come, according to this Brisa, we have no choice but to come to the conclusion that Rabbi Meir holds that there are two Kiddushim on Levisha. And if there are two Kiddushim on Levisha, that's going to apply even in the case of the first Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. And therefore, our Mishnah that drops that first Kiddush could not possibly be reconciled with Rabbi Meir. Says the Gemara, let's try to understand now. So again, just to summarize, according to Chachamim, there's one Kiddush on Pshita, another Kiddush on Levisha. According to Rabbi Meir, there are two Kiddushim on Levisha. And then Afkamina is going to be in the first round, according to the Chachamim, that have Kiddush number one on Levisha, that on Pshita, that's not going to apply on the first round. Of course, it's Big Day Chol. According to Rabbi Meir, even on the first case, when he puts on his Big Day Zav to start the Avoda, he needs two Kiddushim. One when he takes off his Big Day Chol, and a second Kiddush after he puts on his Big Day Zav. Fine. Sakta Gemara Bishlem, I understand Rabbi Meir. Now let's go back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah establishes that there are 10 Kiddushim and 5 Tfilas during the course of the day. The Gemara says that makes sense only according to Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir holds that Levisha generates 2 Kiddushim. Hence, the first Levisha, when he puts on his big days of on the top of the morning to start the day, start the Avoda, he needs 2 Kiddushim. Well, then we're going to say that there are 5 Tvilos and 10 Kiddushim. Hainu de Mishkachas Lei, now we turn to Daf Lamed Beis, Asara Kiddushim. El Rabbanon, but according to Chachamim, who hold that a donning of the Big Day Kodesh only generates 1 Kiddush, and the other Kiddush is for Pshita, taking off the previous set of Begadim. And therefore, in the case of the first Avoda, he's taking off Big Day Chol, there's no Kiddush, is Tisha B'Av. We got to drop one of the Kiddushim and reduce the number from 10 to 9. How do we reconcile the Mishnah that requires 10 Kiddushim with the sheet of the Chacham? Again, let's go over this one more time, for my sake. Bishleim, I understand very well. It's very smooth according to Rabbi Meir. The number 10 is the accurate choice of a number. Why? Because even before the first Avodah and the first Levisha Big Day Zav, when he does his first Tvila, he needed a Kiddush through, again, not because of Pshita, but he needs a Kiddush in order to take off the first set of garments in preparation for putting on the Big Day Kodesh. And then once he puts on the Big Day Kodesh, he needs a second Kiddush. Both Kiddushim are generated by the Levisha. Is now we have the number 10. But if you go like the Rabbanan, Levisha only generates 1 single Kiddush, and the other Kiddush is for Pshita. Then we have to drop the first Kiddush, which is exactly what we've been saying all along, and that's the Mishnah. But if you drop the first Kiddush on Pshita, then you're left with only 9 Kiddush. How could the Mishnah possibly postulate that there are 10 Kiddushim during the course of the day? Amri Loch Rabbanan, Kiddusha Basra, Ki Pashid Big Day Kodesh, Velovich Big Day Chol, Ovid Loy Hasam. What generates the 10th Kiddush? That's when he takes off his Big Day Zav at the termination of Yom Kippurim, when he finishes all his Avodah, and he puts on Big Day Chol. And since the Rabbanan hold that Pshita, taking off Big Day Kodesh, generates its own independent Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, it's irrelevant what begadim he's now going to replace, he's going to put on. What begadim is he taking off? And Pshita itself is Mechayev in Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. So when he's poshet the Big Day Zav, he needs a Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, simply because Levisha and Pshita both generate Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim. So when he gets to the last, shall I say, the goodbye party, when he takes off his Big Day Zav and he puts on Big Day Chol at the end of the day, he needs a Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim because of the Pshita, meaning the removal of the Big Day Zav. And that very last Kiddush will be number 10 on the list. Now, why doesn't Rabbi Meir now jack up the number to 11? So we only need a Kiddush on Pshita, according to Rabbi Meir, as an introduction to the Levisha that's going to come afterwards, because it's Rabbi Meir's sheet that Levisha generates 2 Kiddushim. Well, guess what? When he takes off his Big Day Zav and puts on Big Day Chol, he's no longer going to be putting on Big Day Kahuna. He's finished for the day. He can retire for the night. So there's no Kiddush after the Pshita of Big Day Zav, because normally the only reason there would be Pshita after Big Day Zav is in anticipation of the next Levisha. But he's finished all the Avodas Hayom. He's going to be wearing Big Day Chol. Therefore, there's no Kiddush of Pshita, meaning Kiddush that is in anticipation of Levisha. There's no anticipation of Levisha. Tana Rabbana. We're now looking for the source for the 5 tefillos and the 10 kiddush on Yom Kippur. And we learned in a brisa, and we're going back again to Parshas Achrei Mos. State in Pasuk it says, "Uba Aaron el Oel Moed upashat es bigdei abad asher lavash bevo el hakodesh v'nicham sham." Now, this pasuk cannot be understood kipshuto on a simple level, straightforward. That Aaron is coming to the old Moed, and why? He's going to enter into the old Moed just simply to take off his clothes? That doesn't make any sense. Meaning to take off his big day lava. So lava huba. Why is Aaron coming into the old Moed? Again, even though the pasuk seems to indicate he's coming to be poached Gadov, we can't believe that we're going to require that Aaron come in to the old Moed just simply to be poached his begadim, his big day lava. Is lama uba. So why is Aaron now in this pasuk coming into the Oel Moed? Now again, this pasuk appears right after he finished the Avodas HaKtoras. So whatever he has to do, lifnai v'lifnim in the Kodesh Kodashim, which is the 2 parts of that, it's HaKtoras, and Azos Adam, of Dam Soyer, Dam Par, whatever it is, he's already accomplished all that. So is there any other avoda other than Ktores and Azos Damim that he needs to do, the Kohen Gadol, in the Kodesh Kodashim? And if there is such an avoda, then perhaps that's what the pasuk means in this very strange cryptic pasuk. Uba Aaron el Ol Moed, upashat es bigdei abad. There's the Bryce saying Uba el lahotzi es hakaf v'es hamachta. Now, the next time that the Kohen Gadol is going to visit the Kodesh Kodashim is 365 days later. So he doesn't want to leave the kaf and the machta, which are full of remnants of burnt ketores, in the Kodesh Kodashim. Okay, we'll see. The Mefarshim want to know what would be so terrible if he left it there. Let's assume it's not proper for the Kodesh Kodashim, it's not covered, that for a full year, the remnants of this burning of the Ketores with the Kaf and the Machta will remain situated in the Kodesh Kodashim. So I have a simple eitzah. When the Kohen Gadol finishes the Ketores, then let him take with him the Kafu Machta. In other words, the Aktoris requires what's called Achetale Ha'oshan, right? He has to wait till a pillar of smoke goes up and fills up the Kodesh Kodashim. Why wait? In other words, why not wait? I meant to ask. Why are we rushing the Kohen Gadol out of the Kodesh Kodashim as soon as he places the Ketores on the Machta? Why not encourage the Kohen Gadol? He's got to get rid of the Kafu Machta. He can't leave it there for 365 days. Let him dilly-dally. I'll give him psukim to read or whatever, or tefillos to recite. Let him stay and remain. Watch this whole beautiful scene where again, he can't take pictures because it's Yontif, but of the Ketores going up and filling up the Kodesh Kodashim with the smoke. And then when things die down, he'll take the Kafu Machta, whatever's left there, and he'll bring it out of the Kodesh Kodashim. Why does the Torah say, Uba Aaron el Oel Moed? And the Gemara says, the Bryce says, Lama Uba, why is he coming back to El Moed? The Pasuk doesn't give any indication that there's a further avoda to be done in the Kodesh Kodashim. And the answer is, Uba lahotzi es hakaf v'es hamachta. But it's explicit in this brisa that the Kohen Gadol has to make a separate trip and enter into the Kodesh Kodashim one last time in order to remove the Kaful Machta. Why does he need a separate independent trip, an entry into the Kodesh Kodashim? Why does he just finish the Avodah of the Ketores, Anshetala Tumraso, and then he can take the Kaful Machta out immediately? What's burning? What's rushing him out of the Kodesh Kodashim? Such that now there's going to be a time lapse until the kiyum of the Kodesh Kodesh of the Haktaras is complete, and in the meantime, the Kohen Gadol is somewhere out there. So honestly, I didn't know the answer to this question until I went back to our introduction that we've been studying to Kodshim. And there, I found something absolutely fascinating. He writes that the Kohen Gadol has to get out of there as soon as possible. As soon as he fulfills his mitzvah of the Ketores, with all the complications that we described, he's got to exit the Kodesh Kodashim and show up in the Heichal. And it's crucial that everyone sees the Kohen Gadol alive and well. The people are in a state of anxiety. And there were many Kohanim Gedolim who never made it alive out of the Kodesh Kodashim. They actually dropped, I don't want to use DB, but they died in the Kodesh Kodashim. That has to do with Stukim and so forth and so on. I don't know if we ever got a chance to discuss that. But to make a long story short, the Kohen Gadol is not going to delay his exit from the Kodesh Kodashim until after the Avodas HaKetoros is complete and the Kodesh Kodashim is filled with the smoke of the Ketores. He's going to get out of there immediately, and he'll only come back one last time to say goodbye to the Kodesh Kodashim for a year in order to be Motzi the Kafu Machta. Okay. Now, I think I mentioned in the past that one of the important commentaries on Masechet Yoma is the Siach Yitzchak. And he asks the following question. He says, I don't get what's going on over here. The Gemara is perplexed, according to the Rabbanan, who don't have the original Kiddush when he starts his day of Pshita because he's taking off the big day Chol. How do they come up with the number 10? What was the Makshan thinking? Hello, Mishnah Mufureshasi. Whenever you see a Gemara, you assume that the Gemara knew all the Mishnayos. L'kaman v'daf ayin shebesof avodas hayom poshet es bigdei zav u'mekadesh yodav v'ragla. There's an explicit Mishnah that says that after the Kohen Gadol completes his day and he takes off the bigdei zav, he then needs a kiddush time raglayan. Therefore, Mevela, we have again the completion of the number 10. If you're looking for the magic number 10, what was the Shakla Vitaria here? What was the Makshan thinking when he said, wait a minute, according to Chacham, there are only 9 Kiddushim? You'll open up the Mishnah, you'll see there are 10 Kiddushim. Did the Gemara not know the Mishnah? Ubir Asiach Yitzchak, Shekevan Sheyesh Asor Kiddushim L'chamesh Tfilos, Hainu kiddush lifnei tvila, v'kiddush liachar tvila. So every tvila 5 requires a kiddush before and a kiddush after. Is maksha gemara hare b'kiddush ha'achron hamuva b'mishnah sham ein bo tvila. If kiddushim are one before tefillah and one after tefillah, the Gemara is asking Akakasha on the Mishnah. How can the Mishnah say that the 10th kiddush is after he completes the whole day and he takes off his big day zav? There was no tefillah when he, transferred from big day zav to big day chol. There was no tefillah in the middle, and that's what the Gemara was bothered by. Why did the Mishnah, again, in order to round out the number 10, insist on a kiddush after he takes off the big day zav when there's no tefillah? In the absence of tefillah, there's no kiddush yadayim raglayim. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share with you, the Siach Yitzchak. Okay, now the Brisa continues, and we're trying to get a grasp on this halacha that the Torah requires that the Kohen Gadol come back into the Kodesh Kodashim one more time to remove the kaf umachta. How do we see this in the psukim, the Seder psukim? It says here, Parsha Kula, again, some have the girsa of Kol Parsha Kula. Nemra la Seder chutz mi pasuk zeh. If you follow the sequence of psukim, with one exception, you will follow the sequence of the avodos. And there's one pasuk that's out of place that appears earlier in the parsha. Hikdimo hakasuv b'psukei haparsha shelo lefi haseder. And this is a sugi of Abaye later on Daf Ayin Aleph, that after the pasuk ba Aaron, it says v'lavash es begado v'yotza v'yosas olaso v'yes olas ha'am. It means that there was a krova of 2 ayals of ayalim. There was Elo and Elo Shalat Sibur. And that's what it means, v'yotza v'yosas olaso v'yes olas ha'am. Now, these avodos were done the big day zav. And it says v'yotza v'yosas olaso v'yes olas ha'am. But this is, what do you mean v'yotza? This is the first yitzia in the entire parsha. He says here, hayitzia amura kodem lechein v'parsha v'pasuk vayetze el hamizbech hi lemizbech hazav shbetoch ha'hechal v'ofen hayitziu kifi shepirush Rashi shekohen gadol yotze v'komo lefnim min hamizbech hapnimi he omed bitzido hachitzoni b'toch ha'hechal. So, al kochach, we have no choice. The Kohen Gadol has to be mafsik between his first, what we call Bir Rishona Lifnim, for the avoda of today, which is the avodas pnimis, and that has to be separated from the Biyasa Shniya when he goes Lifnim to remove the kaf umachta. So the Seder Psukim is completely off. With Yitziaso for the Ola of El Kohen Gadol and the Olas Ha'am, the El of the Am. That's Kodemis. That comes be first. The Bia, when he goes into the Kodesh HaKadoshim to remove the Kaf and the Machta. In the Seder Apsukim, this Yitzia only appears, right, which is in Pasuk Chav Daled, only appears in Pasuk Chav Gimel. So there's no, how should I say, thematic continuity to the Psukim. Now, what I would suggest for tomorrow is that we go through the Psukim inside. Believe me, to remind me, I want to have a Chumash. And we'll see exactly how the Gemara derives its conclusion from the lack of Seder Psukim and which pasuk is clearly out of sequence. Okay, then? So that's for tomorrow. Wishing everyone a great day.